sew. Hello, welcome to my mum's greenhouse. I guess we're going to film the intro here. Feels like a nice spot. It's kind of colourful. Hopefully you can see me. I can't see you because the sun is just on the screen. But that's fine. I don't need to see you because I don't see you anyway. Because you're... I don't see myself. Anyway, I'm wearing a scarf. It's good. Quite a shitty story about it. Well, not really shitty. Not for you, really. I don't think. Basically, before I went on holiday, which was very lovely, I enjoyed France very much and all the sugary goods that I could eat, and swimming in the sea. It was very lovely. But before I went and got a haircut, and I hate it. Like, it's bad. I think it's bad. Well, at least every time I look in the mirror, I don't feel like I look at myself, and I kind of feel like I want to throw up or cry. Kind of shit. And I'm not really certain how I got here, because I went to the same hairdresser, I brought the same pictures, and I basically asked for the same haircut as last time, but this time she didn't listen. It's like going to get a haircut is kind of a Russian roulette. You don't know what you're gonna get. So that's nice. I'm trying to figure things out. I have not worked out my hair yet. Probably won't. So it's gonna be hats and scarves this summer, I guess. But just kind of me, because although I like the scarf thing, many other people, basically most, don't really like it on myself, but it's still better than my hair is currently. Like, I really don't like it, which is frustrating. Like, it makes me sad and angry. But enough about that. You're not here to hear me complain about my hair. You're here because you want to sew something, or you want to see me sew something. And this time I've got a pattern that is free. It's basically a jumpsuit. Very lovely. This one here. I will leave the link down below, which I always do, but I'll leave the link down below and you can do it too. The only thing you need to do is print it out, so that's the only money that is gonna go into it. You don't have to pay for the pattern, which is great. And for the fabric, I've got this lovely tablecloth. I believe it's actually being used as a tablecloth by my mum. So hopefully it's enough. Like, I actually haven't checked, but it feels like a significant amount of fabric, so I probably can make a suit out of it. And hopefully it will make me feel better about my hair too, for some reason. But yeah, there is gonna be some hiccups, because I am at my parents' place for this week still, and I planned to sew this entire suit here. But I forgot a few things, like the interfacing, buttons, the buttonhole foot, a zipper, which means I can't do a whole lot. But I will do all that I can here, and I will finish it when I get back home. And hopefully it's gonna work out better than my hair. And I hope you're gonna enjoy the video. That's enough for the intro, I think. Do you want some shots of this lovely greenhouse? Because I can offer you some. I will give you it anyway. As promised, here are some shots from my mum's greenhouse. I love greenhouses. I think they're magical. Like, I love going to botanical gardens, and especially the greenhouses in there. I love them. So naturally I love this place. Anyway, as I made my way back inside to actually start the project, I came across two large dogs. And they were not happy with me sitting at a place where they couldn't reach. And with that, it's time to begin with the project. Obviously, the start is cutting out your pattern pieces. Also the place I made my first mistake. No, second. The first one was me not bringing everything so that I could actually finish this project. Although I didn't realize this at this point. So we're not going into it directly. No, because I first continued with sewing all the darts that I had to sew in according to the pattern, and then go on with pressing all the darts into place and pinning the cuffs for later. But after pinning the cuffs was when I started to get confused and realize I should have cut the back piece on the fold, which I had not, because I didn't read properly. It was quite large on the pattern piece that it said cut on the fold, which I didn't. So that got me a bit panicked because I did not have enough fabric to recut it. So what I did instead was cut out a strap of fabric to place in between the now 2 back pieces that should have been 1, keeping in mind the sewing allowance because it should have been on a fold. So I had to make that up in the strip I cut and hope that it would work. So I did that before I went on, pinned the pocket and sewed all of it in place, which is also where I made the next mistake, placing the pocket to the wrong pants, which I only realized when I had to base stitch the pocket in place, and I realized it just didn't fit right with the pants. But I fixed that without actually tearing it apart. I just put the pocket inside out and made a new seam, and it worked, so yay for me. And finally, after sewing all the things in place and sewing the back piece together, I got to the point where I had to put the front and back pieces of the top together by stitching the shoulder pieces and then pressing those. After that, I pinned together the front pants, sewing and pressing the seam open. Same goes for the back band pieces. And then attach those 2 pieces at the crotch and inner leg, starting from the crotch seam to the bottom of the pant leg. And that's kind of the last thing I sewed when I was back home, and I went home. And after arriving home, I started with what the instructions said to begin with, which was cutting the interfacing and ironing them on the lining pieces, which I obviously didn't because I didn't bring the interfacing. And since the iron was already on, I also pressed the cuffs in half and then pressed in sewing allowance on both sides for later. I thought that might be making the whole process of sewing the cuffs on easier. Next step, pin the collar, sew the collar, put it inside out, pin the lining pieces together, sew the lining pieces together, attach them to the top, but don't forget to top stitch the collar first, because that's what I did, and then I had to go in between. It was kind of complicated, but it didn't have to be. And after you top stitch that and sew the lining pieces to your bodice, also fold over the lining pieces, iron them down and top stitch those all along. They said not the neckline, but I did do the neckline, so it's fine. Then I pinned and sewed the right sides, both from the pants and the top, together, so that we could go and get on to the next step, which was find some buttons, figure out the placements, and sew the buttonholes. Surprisingly, the buttonhole thing went very smooth and without any problem, which is new. However, the zipper, besides it being a bit too small because I made the wrong decision, I also realized I have been dumb all this time when sewing in an invisible zipper. Because I learned a new thing, which is the first time I actually opened a video and paid attention to how actually to sew in an invisible zipper. They said to press open a zipper, which is not the part where I'm like, I am so dumb. No, but it will be easier for you to sew it in because you can get better to the edge of the zipper. Now, what I normally did, and I can't get over how dumb it is of me, I usually fold over the sewing allowance and then place the zipper on it and then sew it together, and always get confused like, how is this an invisible zipper? I can still see the seam. But that's not what you're supposed to do. No, you're supposed to place the zipper while you haven't folded in the sewing allowance, no, just flat, and then put the zipper on the fabric and sew a centimeter inwards, so that when you then fold over the sew allowance, you can't see the seam, because now I have an invisible zipper that is actually kind of looking invisible. Time to sew both the sides, and I mean the bodice and the pants together, which is where I made another mistake, because I forgot to pay attention to line up the zipper and the button closure, and I also just sew straight across, which kind of defeats putting in a zipper, because I sew that close, like close, not like a base stitch, no, just full on tiny stitches, and it was off center, so no matter what I did, I couldn't make it work. So I had to seam rip it, which is normally not what I do, because normally I'm lazy and I'm like, I can figure how to do this, but the easiest way was to take it apart, which was a shame because it also zigzagged it, so I had to take a bit more seams than I should have. I could have checked it earlier, but I didn't. And this time making sure that I take out the base stitch from the button enclosure and sew it from, you know, where the opening is, so that when you take out the buttons and then zip down the zipper that you can actually open it up. I did that this second time and sew it in place, not sewing it straight on but stopping where I should stop in the middle, you know, and zigzag the edges. And then there are only a couple of things left to do, which is sew the side closed, the last side, which is I believe the left side, sew on the buttons, which technically I should have done earlier but I didn't, and sew on the cuffs, which I already pressed, so it was very simple. I just had to pin the cuffs to the armholes and sew that seam in place and then fold it over, which was very easy because it was pressed into the folds, and then top stitched it. And obviously hem the legs. I only had to cut a little bit off to straighten the leg seam, and I did a, how is it called? A rolling hem? A rolled hem? Basically, I folded the hem twice. So 1 centimeter and another centimeter, and then top stitched it. And then it was done. Which means we can go get to the end result. Great. No, still there. Gone. I finished it. Did it take longer than I anticipated? Yes. Because obviously the first thing I was mistaken to do was not bring everything when I was at my parents', but when I was supposed to start making it, or the original idea to also finish making it that week. So that went wrong. But I didn't even got to do all the things that I technically could do, because I also got kind of ill that week, as something to do with having a period and the heat, the sudden heat. That wasn't really a good combination, and I was just in pain and in bed all the time. So that was not quite right. Obviously we also went through a couple of things in my voiceover. What kind of went wrong in making this, and the last thing that I will have to go back to at some point is the zipper. So I did not have any zippers that would work for this, so I went out and got one. But in hindsight I could have gotten the longer version, because now I have a little hole for my belly button, and it's slightly bothering me. Like, I know it's just probably going to be just me noticing that, but that's enough. I'm wearing it. Anyway, I made it, I finished it, and I am very proud on how I finished it. I even taken it apart a couple of times to do it right, which is normally not something I do because I'm lazy and I usually am like, I just want to finish this project, even though I know that in the long term I will be annoyed at those little mistakes because they're very, so taking apart and doing it again and not trying to do it the lazy way out, which is usually also the hardest way to do them, to improve on them. The easiest thing is to take it apart, even though it's very boring. Very boring. Anyway, it was a free pattern. It's a great pattern. It's quite easy to use. It's not like beginner friendly, but like intermediate beginning. You can do it. They have like a blog post going through it step for step, and if you have also YouTube on the side, I think you'll be able to figure it out. I mainly wanted to make it because the pictures of the model wearing this suit in the blue one that is probably at the beginning of the video, a small picture of it, her butt looks great, and that was kind of the main reason I wanted to do it. Don't know if my boat does look great. You'll be the judge of that. That's weird. Anyway, I like from up here I kind of like it, but then when I see it a whole, I'm not certain if it's the most flattering on me. I feel kind of like a square. I'm not certain about it, but it's super comfortable. I was very worried because I often have this problem with suits that they give me a wedgie because my torso is quite long, but this one doesn't do that. But if you have a short torso, you will have to shorten it. But like, I don't have like the longest torso, but it is often have been a kind of a problem. But it doesn't do that. I do like the yellow buttons. It's not like I have much other choice, but I think yellow and red is a very nice complementary colour scheme. I do think I like it, and I think I will just have to grow in it, just like my hair. Because in the beginning of the video I wore a scarf to hide my hair because I hated it, and no, I don't per se love it because it's still not what I asked for, but I think because it has grown a little bit and my hair is kind of like figuring its way to deal with this hair, or I'm figuring out how to style it, or I'm just getting used to it. I don't hate this as much. I sometimes even like it. Not on wash day. On wash day it's horrible, but when it's getting a bit dirty, it's fine. So, hair is fine, which is also good. What else? Not much else, really. Took me longer. Made a couple of mistakes. Also, my birthday was on Monday. Hate birthdays. Well, my birthday. I hate my birthday. It's a very triggering thing, and I might have not planned it really well, because I'm not really about celebrating it, but this time I was all alone on my birthday, and that was hard. Very hard. Yeah, next year I will have to have company. Don't have to celebrate it, but just some company would be nice. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna put that in, but I said it, so there you have it. And for next video, I hope it will be sooner, because obviously this video has been later than I planned, because I had a holiday, which was great, that made this in my head be a week later as normally, but I think it's now 2 weeks later, and I'm not even certain if I can edit it on time for Monday, so hopefully I do that, and hopefully next video is going to be back into schedule. I think it is, because next project I'm doing less sewing and something else, just to try it out, and also because it's like, never mind, you will see that in next video. But if you like this video, please leave a like and a comment and subscribe to this channel. It would be very lovely to have you. Also, I will be making some exciting things. I have like a top I want to make. I've collected some shells on the beach. Well, my family did, and then they were like, well, that was a good hobby to have, but we do not really want the shells. And I was like, I'm gonna make a DIY project out of it. So that is coming, although I do have to figure out how exactly I'm gonna do this, and I need to get some supplies, but it will be fun. Yeah, so that's all something to look forward to. And also for winter I have some exciting project, but that's winter or fall, and I really do not bother to think about that, because I cannot think about the fact that it's gonna be cold again. I do not want that. Anyway, bye, see you next time. Obviously we have now a finished project. What is this? I say so much, and I do it again. Great. Hello. I feel, well, at least I can see myself. Hopefully you can see me. Anyway.